Hello and welcome to this demo version of the new Project Program Manager. This is a complete new rebuild after the other one. Yeah, do excuse me, I do have a bit of a cold, so I may not come across as clearly as normal. First things first, this will be the introduction page. You're going to have a link which you can watch this video on our website, or you can watch it on YouTube. That will be the start of the spreadsheet once you've purchased it. If you've got the free download version, it'll say something different here and there'll be certain limitations. The first things first is to add a logo. As you can see here, I've already added my logo. All you do is you simply go to Insert and Picture. And what that will do is it'll allow you to add your logo. Once your logo is on the screen, you'll see there your logo disappears. Anything within that black box will appear as your logo. So all you've got to do is move it in and you can see it there, how it's going to appear on all of the pages. So once you've inserted your logo, you can move on to the settings. Incidentally, this you can do once and you can save this default template. So you don't have to insert your logo each time if you want to do. If you want to insert a joint logo between you and your client, that's also possible. Settings. This is the settings per project. So your company name will already be in here and it'll be locked. Once you purchase this, you can put in your client name. I've just put in Spreadsheet Solutions. You can put in your client name, the project name, the start date of the project, and the target end date for the project. That doesn't necessarily mean that's when it's going to end, but that's the target from the beginning as to when you want your project to end. Here you can put in your workflow options, so you can break all of your tasks into categories. You've got up to 20 categories, all color-coded, so you can use whichever ones of those you wish. And also personnel, you can put in up to 20 people's names as well. And the last thing to fill in is this. It is merely a yes or no option. What this does is if you've got a task which is supposed to last 5 days and you're 2 days behind and there's a task that starts straight afterwards, do you want the task that's supposed to start after the task that's running behind to start on the date when the task is supposed to finish, or do you want it to delay by 2 days because you're 2 days behind and then start? So that's what this does. By ticking yes, what this does is it checks how far behind you are on each task and adds on the respective days before the next task can start to give you that breathing space, which means that if you delayed on one task and all the other tasks are dependent on that, it will delay your entire project. If you say no, you want to be warned that you're behind, but you wanted to start when as the other task should have finished, in other words, you're going to just chase up that task and get it done quicker, then you can select no. Then what it'll do, it won't delay if you're behind. It'll just keep to the schedule that you've set. You can see that later on what I mean by that. Once you set it up with your project, then you can move on to your task list. Now this is a list of all of your tasks. You can put the task name down the side, the description, and then merely click on this and assign it to one of your predetermined workflow categories. You can also assign a personnel to each task and a proposed starting date. Now, if you propose a starting date, it's not necessarily going to start on that day because it may be dependent on other tasks, but I'll get to that in a second. So you can put in a proposed starting date. If you don't, then it's just going to start that task as soon as possible. The only time you put in a proposed starting date is when you specifically don't want it to start before a certain date. Then you put that starting date over there. Your duration in days, how many working days does this task take? Now bear in mind this whole project excludes weekends and bank holidays. So if you put in, those are all only working days, Monday to Friday. Now, here you've got up to 5 parent tasks. So for argument's sake, this task here, which is the research group, I've said online check and price check, i.e. these 2 tasks, have to be completed before this one can start. So you can put up to 5 parent tasks per task, so up to 5 tasks that need to be completed before that can start. Now you may say, well, you may need to put more in here, but actually you don't, because if this research groups is dependent on these 2 tasks, and then if I put, like for argument's sake, this one here, that's dependent on the research, because research is dependent on these 2, and this one's dependent on research group, this one then is by default dependent on these 2 as well. So it's almost like a pyramid. Once you've assigned that task to only start when these 2 are finished, then this one you only have to put in that one to cover all 3 of these. Does that make sense? Because this one can only start once these two are finished, which means that if this one here collect specs is dependent on the research groups, then it has to wait for these two to finish by default. So you don't have to list all the tasks, just the ones that are happening the latest. So that's up to 5 parent tasks that you can enter. And then you've got here your task importance. This column is merely here for your benefit, except if you enter critical. If you enter critical, what that means is that task has to happen on that date that you've selected. So whenever you enter a critical task, you need to put the date in here as to when that needs to happen. Because what that is checking is a critical task means that it has to happen, and it has to happen on those dates. So later on, here where you've got your report for each task, it shows that this is a future task, but at the moment there's no warnings. It shows there that it's a critical task, because what will happen is if all of these tasks are delayed, and this one's then due to start and is not going to be started on time, then that will show up with a warning to warn you well in advance that a critical task is not going to be started. So, and that will compare your scheduled start date, as it says there. Your scheduled start date at the moment is Monday the 15th of May, whereas the date over here, it says Monday the 15th of May. If we said that this was actually supposed to be on, say, the 12th of May, Friday the 12th, then you'll see there, if we put that we've started on Friday the 12th, then you'll see here it's now due to start on Friday the 12th because it's moved forward. But whatever tasks it's dependent on, let's go have a look and see which tasks it's dependent on. It is dependent on upload social media, and your uploading social media is on the 11th of May. So let's bring this backwards and say, let's just say for argument's sake that one's due to start on the 10th of May. Now all of a sudden when we scroll across, we'll see there's a warning, and it's showing that that task is a critical task, but it's not actually due to start on time. So that's what that does. It already shows you in advance that you're not going to make a specific critical task. So that's the benefits of marking it as a critical task. The other selections don't do anything. It's just there for your benefit. Now over here you can see each task. Is it a parent or critical task by the tick meaning a parent, the star meaning a critical, your scheduled start date, your scheduled finish date. That's what the schedule's taking, regardless of what you may have put in before. That's what it's taking based on your parent tasks, and how far currently you should be into the project. So at the moment, this task should be 33% done, 33% done, 13% done. These percentages are at the end of the current day, but it gives you a little bit of leeway. So this says you 0.2 days ahead. This says you minus 0.2 days. That means behind, but it still says active and on time because you're within 1 day. So as you can see over here, I've put in that they're 40%, 40%, and 10%. If you say, well, actually those guys are 20% into that task, then you can see you're actually now ahead of schedule. So that's what that does. You would have to come in on a daily basis and put in your percentages complete for each of the active tasks, and it would update you over here as to your days difference and give you a status. So it says active and on time, and there's no warnings as of yet for anything like that. This is your project chart. It will put them in order. Even if I were to add another task at the bottom, say for argument's sake with market research, it would bring it up to the top. So it would put them in order of categories first, and then in order of starting dates. So you can see a natural progression broken down into categories. And that will give you a layout over a full year. As you can see, there is the red mark, which is your target date to complete the project, and there is today's date. If you want to see further on, let's just say you want to see from Monday the 20th of March, you don't want to, let's just say you're into the project and you want to see it sooner, you can just override that by putting in the 20th of March, and then what you'll see, it'll start on Monday the 20th of March. Leave it blank for the start of the project. Usually the project will allow you for over a year's worth of dates, so you don't really need to worry about that too much. But if you do have an extremely long project, you can cut off the first section by just putting in a date there as to telling us when to start. If you leave it blank, it will start with a project start date. You've got a project report, which is generated automatically, showing you your project started date, target end date, current scheduled end date, whether you're ahead or behind a schedule, how many of each of these tasks you've got. They'll change color if you've actually got some. If they're zero, they'll stay white. That's really the project critical task later or behind. That's what you need to be watching. And obviously active task behind schedule. That's when you need drawn to your attention. And this will give you your current 30 active tasks, ranked in order from most necessary to check up on, i.e. any that are behind, through to any that are ahead. If you do have more than 30, all you need to do here is come to here and go to the drop down list and select page 2, and then you'll see from 31 onwards. So you can see all of them, not on the page at once. Okay, and then the last one is the details report. What this does, this one I wouldn't recommend showing to a client, obviously, but this is something that you can use for your in-house stats. Basically, your completed, active, and special, so you can see how many parent tasks or critical tasks you've got, and also your active tasks, how many are behind, how many are ahead of schedule, how many are on schedule, how many were completed early, and how many were completed late. And you can see that based on workflow, you can see that based on personnel, and you can see that based, obviously, personnel here, completed, active, and specials as well by personnel. So you can see the staff breakdown as well as the product workflow category breakdown. So that's not only good to see while the project's on, but also after the project to see what was completed early and late, so that you know what you need to address. The only other thing that I need to show you is back on the task list, which is obviously the list where you put in all of the details. You've got your proposed start dates, parent tasks, all that. Last but not least is you've got these two columns over here. This is your end date. What this does is, if you when one of these tasks, let's just say for argument's sake this task gets to 100%, then what you can do is you can put in the finishing date. So if this task was scheduled between the 15th and the 17th, let's just say it was finished on the 17th of Feb, then you've got that as a completed task. And if you come over here, you can see here that it's been completed. So that would be your completed task at 100%. You can only put in a date here when you put that at 100%. So if this is blank and that was back at 40, and you try and put in a date here, say for argument's sake 17th of Feb, it's going to say no, you can't, because it needs to be at 100%. So we put the completed date once that's at 100. And the only other column is this one. If for argument's sake you've put that, let's just say for argument's sake this task here, your research group is dependent on these other ones finishing, and it can only start on the 20th. Let's just say for argument's sake you get to the 18th and you haven't finished these tasks yet, but you can start this one. Even though you haven't quite finished these, you've got enough information to start, and you actually say, well, even though it's scheduled to start on the 20th, I want to start this on the 17th of Feb, being the Friday, because you're actually ready to start. If you then just go in there and put in the 17th of Feb, it will override that date. And as you saw, all the other dates, because this is now started sooner, and the other projects that are dependent on that, the other tasks that are dependent on that task, will all move up accordingly. So even though it hasn't finished, if you put anything in here, anything you type in the start override date will override everything else. All of the formulas to work out what this is based on, all the other dates, will all be null and void. It will take this date. So you only want to use this column if you actually have started and you want to override everything and say, no, forget everything, we're starting today, that's it. Then you can put that in here. But otherwise, if you wanted to automatically calculate, you take that out and everything will fall in line. So this is the sheet where you do all the work. All these red blocks at the top, that's where you would put in when you make all the adjustments. Specifically these columns here, because that's your percentage completed, you need to update every day, and your end dates once they're finished, and if you need to override your start date. The rest of this is really just capturing the details at the beginning. You can obviously update this as you go along, and the screen section here will be automatically generated, as will the project chart, as will your project report, as will your detailed report. It all comes from this sheet here. So this is the one that you need to be updating as you go along with the project, and it'll keep you in track. So I hope that I'm sure you'll see the benefit of that. I hope that it's what you've been looking for. If you do want something similar, but this one doesn't quite do the job, please do contact us, because we specialize in these project manager type solutions. So please do get hold of us. Otherwise, we wish you all the best for you and your future projects. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.